How is finding a job as a graphic designer different from most professions?
Well, I think all the things that we've been saying, I think what makes it different is that it's a creative job, and anytime that you're looking for a job in a creative industry, you have to be creative in how you approach it. So I think that from that aspect, that's why I'm not as big on all the high education, the technical aspects as much as I am more interested in the creative aspect. So I think it's different in that regard. You have to think on your feet well. You have to be witty. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be confident, but not too confident. I think it's just different in that regard, in that a lot of businesses anymore outside of the creative industry, you would wear really nice business clothes and go on an interview. In this industry, that almost works against you. People that dress up for an interview, typically it's an odd thing. I mean, you think that it's a respect thing for one, so I appreciate when people do it, but at the same time it's an odd thing because we almost never get anybody that would come in a tie. A suit, that's unheard of. Nobody would come in a suit. And when they do, it's typically met with a lot of why'd you wear a suit? That's you don't need to wear that here, and maybe account service, but even account service anymore, people still don't even dress up in account service that way anymore. It's kind of funny, but it's become a casual world in the creative industry, advertising, graphic design, all that. It's pretty casual.
It's finding a job.
Yeah. How is it different?
Well, I think it might. I can only speculate in other industries. How they would look for. What kind of things they would look for. It's not just about experience; it's how you present yourself. I think in design, showing that you. And in fact, I have run into this where, we've interviewed for positions here in the past where, on paper someone will come in and have, 10 years experience, and they'll talk about themselves great, and they'll communicate very clearly, and and then you look at their portfolio and you're really expecting to see something that was on par with the way they talked about themselves or the way they described their experience. And it's just a total letdown. You'll have other people on the flip side that really are a little maybe self-conscious. They're a little defensive about their work. They don't communicate quite as well or concisely, and and they have very little experience. But they manage to get their foot in the door for an interview. You look at their book, and their book clearly demonstrates thought process. The concepting is great. The messaging is clear. All the pieces and parts are working together. The photography and the typography and the color and the shape and the scale. Everything is communicating together to get the same message across. And it's clear that they understand the process and understand the. I would much rather take that person than the person who talked about themselves and had the great experience. I don't think that happens as much in other industries. You're gonna take a shot at the person who presented themselves the best, but can't really demonstrate which I guess is why they have 90-day trial periods.
In a way, in its way, it's the same thing. Again, you gotta sell yourself, for anything. You gotta show the person that you're better than anybody else they could hire, and why, you are. So you gotta prove yourself. With anything, it's that way,
I think the portfolio is probably the thing that is most different in the process. People are generally hired by their accomplishments or their abilities, and that comes into play as well, but ultimately you have to see the portfolio, and that's what you're selling. It's not just your personality and your abilities, but you actually have a track record with you, where in a lot of in a lot of professions, you know, you can talk about numbers, you can talk about things that you accomplished, but you can't show them what you've done. And in our industry, you can show them, here's
Well, hopefully.
what is,
Hopefully
yeah.
you didn't take like somebody else's hour. You say, yeah, I did this.
That's true. That's true. But ultimately, it's about the portfolio, I think.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, that's the most different thing. I guess portfolio and the way to present it too. It is a little different. I think you have more way to be creative into this field than into others. So
I think one of the big things that's different is probably because I think in this industry you're not just selling the work that you do or the skill set that you have. You're selling an attitude, an image about yourself. You're selling yourself on the basis of what you can kind of promise to people and grow with them. You're selling pretty much your heart and soul. You're not. I can't think of any industry where your heart is so much on the line in the work that you do. I think in other professions, whether it be a lawyer or a healthcare, it's almost like they're doing a service, but there's really not an end product to show for it that you can stand up afterwards and really be like, I did this, and it got recognition, it got known, because of this. So.
I think the key difference, obviously, is that we have to show a portfolio. And it doesn't matter how nice you are, doesn't matter, what programs you may know or not know. I mean, obviously that's a factor in getting you in, but you may know all of these programs, but if your portfolio does not sell it, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's phases of interviewing process with the art world that probably is not so much in the other realm of the world, whereas that you might fill an application, have your resume, your list of skills, you meet with somebody, you talk back and forth, but there's usually not necessarily physical things that you're passing back and forth and talking about, whereas in especially the graphic design world, your portfolio needs to kind of speak for itself. I mean, obviously we talked about the presentation aspect of it, but I don't care how great your resume is, if when I sit down with you, you can't present your portfolio and your portfolio is disorganized or it just really doesn't show any variety, you've done the same thing all the way, across, or, I mean, it should really be your key pieces. And, maybe real world pieces aren't as creative as some of your school pieces, so you have to kind of find that balance, especially the first couple of years. But I want to see real world pieces. They tell me a lot more than sometimes the school pieces do. I would leave some school pieces to kind of show some creativity if your real world job is more production to start off with. But I want to see the production work. I want to see the catalogs. I want to know that you understand letting and kerning and margins and can really truly lay something out, because that's the foundation for the creativity.